So now we have Vivian Howard, the moment that is my favorite moment, Hearts and Minds. And this is, I'm sure, why many of you are here, especially Vivian's fans. So thank you so much. Vivian, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh my God, it's such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank
All right,
you.
before I introduce you, or we have this conversation, as a chef, as an author, as a TV star of Somewhere South, a James Beard Award winner. I just, you know, I was, wow. I mean, thank you for coming on. We are all so blessed that you're here. And let's just show a little clip of, because we could get this show if we're watching it on television, whatever that means today. And let's just get a little context of what you're all about by looking at this clip. Oh, by the way, everybody, HBO Max was, I said it wrong, it was released last midnight. So not this midnight, it's actually launched. So go explore it. And it's the latest streaming platform. And there's one more to come out, which is Peacock, even though it already launched limitedly, but that's the NBC Universal platform. And Vivian, yours was on PBS, but now you could get it on Prime Video, right? So let's just go here.
That connect us all. One of the most humble, Vivian, and I'm a chef. I've always looked at food to help explain the world around me. So I started to seek out the dishes that connect us all. One of the most humble things people eat all over the world is porridge. Would you call this a hand pie?
What is a hand pie?
So what makes this a dumpling?
Dumplings in the South are just a totally different thing.
What would you call it?
Boiled dough.
What are you making?
Congee or juk?
Sag paneer.
Mamaliga. Tagliatelle.
Yes. I made new friends, I met new teachers, and I became a better cook. This one's gonna be perfect.
Ah, no.
Can you give me a tour?
Sure.
This is incredible.
Would you help us on stage with the professional pepperoni roll eating contest?
I saw firsthand how breaking bread and sharing a meal can really create a comfortable place to have meaningful, memorable conversations. I've spent my career cooking Southern food, and we all know of this elephant in the room, and I have a platform. I'd like to share it.
Whether it's food or cultural identity, I don't know what it means to be Korean in America.
So what kind of food do you serve here?
I think I serve soul food. I think my food is soulful.
I've learned a lot, and I learned I have a lot to learn. The American South is my classroom, and my journey starts at home.
Yes. Wow. That's exciting. First of all, since you are such a global expert, using food to illuminate how you can learn about different cultures, that's what I learned by seeing the entire season. I just want everybody to share with us where they're from. So in the chat, if you could just type in where you're zooming in from, just so that Vivian and I can just see within the context of food identity, which we're going to talk about. Amazing. Thank you so much. So Vivian, this show was just launched when?
About, I guess 8-10 weeks ago, kind of in the middle of the pandemic. So we were lucky, actually. That was a silver lining for us, because it had an air date of Friday nights, and that's like a death sentence on PBS. But it turns out everybody was home on Friday nights.
Really? So originally you were scared or worried that, you know, it was appointment viewing, you couldn't stream it. It was on PBS. You had to watch it at a particular time on Friday, which obviously was an old school way of doing it. And we're seeing right now that streaming is really the way, it has been the way, but it's really going that way. And so you were a little nervous that it was on a Friday night because...
Well, because I don't think Friday night's a great TV time. Generally, people used to go out on Friday nights. You know?
Right. So, so then what happened? So we're here, we're stuck in quarantine.
We're
And so-
stuck at home and everybody's cooking and everybody's interested in food content and everybody's trying to feel connected to something. And our show is all about finding connections between cultures and finding the ways that we're more alike than we are different. And so I think it really spoke to the long moment in time that we're in.
And, you know, it's when I watched one of your shows, you said like a really poignant quote that when we eat together, we share more than a meal, right? So how have you used that concept before Corona or thought about that? And through the last, let's say, 2.5 months, have you applied that to the life that you're living now?
You know, I think that I have always kind of looked at breaking bread together as a means to become comfortable with one another. You know, I think that we have always kind of gotten further with conversations when we are doing it over a meal. That's something I've always believed. And during Corona, you know, like I think a lot of people have been eating alone, and then a lot of people have been eating together for the first time ever. You know, I have 2 children, 9-year-old twins, and before this, you know, I could count the number of times we sat down to dinner together this year. And, you know, we had dinner together 40 some nights in a row at a table with, you know, discussion about our day and discussion about what made us comfortable and what made us uncomfortable. And it was really like, you know, appointment conversation. So we were really doing this in you know, real strategic life, trying to make the most of that time at the table.
And what about connecting with other people, whether they're your friends and family or some of the chefs that you worked with on your show around the world? What was your way of connecting with them, if you did or if you didn't?
Well, you know, I have been on this Zoom chat with a bunch of chefs who are all like, you know, pulling their hair out, like, what does this mean? How do we protect our businesses?
Good. I just wanted to maybe hear.
And
Sorry, Vivian, somebody just Zoom bombed us.
No. I was like, hey.
I had to mute everybody.
So, you know, quite literally that way, but, you know, the show, every episode of the show is about a dish that every culture shares. So, you know, I'm a believer that there's really only like 20 dishes in the whole world. Everybody has a dumpling. Everybody has a way of cooking greens. Everybody has a porridge. Everybody has a catch-all stew. And so every episode was about one of those things, and then really seeing how that dish looks in different cultures. And so as a means to connect with viewers and with people at home who seem to really want to be cooking, every week I did these Instagram stories that were around that particular dish and asked people to then make their version of the dish and tag me. And, you know, it's funny because I had people planted the first week. I'm like, okay, we're going to make hand pies, and I need you to make hand pies and take pictures of it so that it looks like people are participating. And we had so much participation that it was like almost a full-time job, like reposting everybody's pictures of hand pies. And 10 weeks later, pictures of hand pies are still coming in. And it felt like creating community and in a time when we're all, you know, isolated. It felt as if we were doing this together. And, you know, it was not something that I knew would work, or I didn't even really know what it would look like, but it proved to be very successful.
I just actually put up your Instagram page. Wow, so many followers. Oh, and thanks for the promo. So you're saying that on Instagram stories, right?
Yeah. If you see up top on the stories, you can see the saved highlights. So you see barbecue sauce, greens, pickles, dumplings, porridge. Those were the subjects for all of the episodes of Somewhere South this season. And so if you click on those
Cool.
highlights, you can watch the tips or the cooking demos that I did. We did one a week that I just did, and
quick
did
pickles.
one with my kids.
That's when you pour a.
And doing it with the kids was really really important for me, because I wanted to show that, you know, you could have your kids cook with you, and it didn't have to be perfect. And there were, you know, different ways to set things up so that, you know, it didn't look like a bomb went off in the end. And it turned out like a lot of people saw that, related to it, and went about trying to cook with their kids.
Well, talking about media, that's interesting. So you produced this show before the coronavirus. That's number one. Number two, while coronavirus was happening, people couldn't even produce. You know, all production's on hold right now because we can't obviously be in close contact and, you know, create these shows like we used to. So you use Instagram to basically illuminate what the show's about, to connect with your fans so that they could watch the show or know about it.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because during coronavirus, two things that I did last year really have played a huge role in how I've moved through this pandemic. One are these Instagram stories. I started this thing last year called Just the Tips Tuesday, and it was in response to lots of media and brand people telling me I needed to engage more on social media, but I hated it. I hate it
too, clearly.
And you know, they were like, you need to share recipes, more recipes. And I'm like, recipes are so valuable. And I write my recipes. And so I also think that like people don't swipe up and follow a recipe. So I wanted to share tips, like little tricks or things that I know as a chef, but you might not know as a home cook, that you can do in your home kitchen to just make things easier.
Like what?
Like, why in the hell do people roast asparagus in the oven? You should never do that.
Really?
Yes, because asparagus is tender and green, and you want it to have snap, but the heat of an oven is too subtle to cook it quickly. So, you know, when asparagus was in season, I did a whole tip on how to deal with asparagus.
And how do you deal with it?
Well, you should sear it in a very hot skillet, or even grill it on a very hot grill, but it's all about high heat. Or you can blanch it in boiling water and then shock it, but nothing subtle, or you're going to have mushy asparagus. So then we did a tip on how to build the perfect cheese plate. And, you know, people were just really engaged in this. And so I took that tip format, which is different than a live video, because it's some video that is interspersed with slides, like educational slides that help you understand what the hell I'm talking about in my video. So we did we transitioned the tip format to coronavirus and Somewhere South, and it was great.
That's great. The reason why I wanted to talk about that, because I find it so fascinating, and I've been covering a lot about this in culture classes, about how entertainment gurus and celebrities and whatever have been using digital media differently. Like I showed Travis Scott going into Fortnite. So, you know, great job in doing that. I guess you also had the time to learn social media too. So let's shift, and that's great. So media, we talked about media. Let's talk a little bit about the food industry right now. Obviously, everybody, the top of mind, and you've had restaurants, and we talked about that too, is when are they going to go out to eat? What's going to happen to the restaurants who are terrified, and what are they going to look like? And then the third, what do you think restaurants and you, what have you done to respond to this major, major, major cultural shift in everything that we're experiencing?
Yeah, well, pre-COVID, I had 3 restaurants, 2 in a very small town in North Carolina and 1 in a slightly larger coastal town. And I was, and still am, on this road to opening 2 restaurants in a hotel in Charleston, South Carolina. So I was like restaurant, very, very focused. And so obviously we had to close our dining rooms, and takeout and curbside was not something that really made sense for us, because we're in a small town, and I'd say about 70% of our clientele would travel 2 hours or more to eat with us. So that was not something that would work right now.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
So I closed everything down, furloughed everyone, and turned to this business model that I set up last year. It was an online pop-up bake shop called Handy and Hot that actually was meant to be.
You did this, or you did it?
No, I started the online pop-up bake shop last year, and it was originally supposed to be a brick and mortar bake shop in our town, but we suffered a terrible hurricane, lost a ton of money, were closed for weeks, and I decided that I didn't want to invest in that, but I'd already invested money in it. So we decided to turn that business model on its head and focus on the online portion of it. So we did baked goods associated with holidays. So Mother's Day, Father's Day, Memorial Day, Thanksgiving. And what we would do is we would, do our social media around it and say, we're opening up sales and we're going to sell 500. And we were only prepared to do 500. We were only prepared to, the packaging, this was all planned in advance. And so these baked goods would sell out really quickly. And so fast forward to this year and closing the restaurants and looking for some way to build revenue and just, I guess, pivot, we decided to take Handy and Hot, and rather than do baked goods, we would do these things called a quarantine kit that were condiments that are meant to help you cook at home. And the condiments come from this cookbook that I just finished called This Will Make It Taste Good. It won't come out till the fall, but the idea of ordering a baked good and getting it, in the mail and then opening it and eating it in 10 minutes was not really like the tone of the moment right now. So I wanted to give you something to help you engage with your kitchen. And I wrote a little booklet with recipes, and so we released 500 of these, and they sold out in like 2 hours. So we released 500 more, again, sold out in 2 hours, 500 more, 2 hours. And until recently, it was just basically me making all this stuff. And it was really overwhelming and also exciting. And I feel like that we have been really smart about looking at what we can do within our business that no one else can do, and doing the thing that works for us, and the thing that's not just a Band-Aid. Like, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to do all the condiments from my book until the book comes out in October. And then if people don't want to make the condiments, but they want to make the other recipes, then they can order it from Handy and Hot. So I'm just excited. Sometimes you don't look at opportunities until you're forced to.
Right.
Really,
so true. And looking at the pain point of the consumer and seeing like how you can offer. They can't go to restaurants, so create a product and send it to them. But you have restaurants, and they were never really easy to run before. Like, what was your experience as somebody who owns restaurants, and what has this illuminated for you?
I can't speak for the entire restaurant industry, but I have had many conversations with other restaurateurs, and it feels like with our restaurants being closed for a period of time that I was in an abusive relationship, and now I see how painful it was.
With your restaurant.
Yeah.
You got to cut the cord to realize how.
And so many of my peers who run restaurants have transitioned to like a meal kit format, where they're offering meal kits just like 2 days a week, and they're working the rest of the week with a very small staff to produce those, and their margins are better because they know exactly how many they're going to sell. Their quality of life is better. And I think there's a lot of people who are trying to look at what they've learned and what's been revealed to them in this period of time, and make their restaurants, if they reopen them, a more sustainable, enjoyable thing to do. I think you're going to see a lot of ghost kitchens.
Yeah, that was interesting. I always say that like the coronavirus has been a magnifier of all the trends that were happening before. Now it's actually, because of this, it's accelerating. Ghost kitchens was a big one. And do you think that these restaurants are going to close, but these restaurateurs or chefs will continue to have their brands by doing different products? Is that really what's going to happen?
I think you'll see some of both. I think some restaurants will open back up just like before. I think you'll see other people who are able to tap into something more that works better for them and possibly works better for all of us. I mean, I don't think that people are going to eat out as much even after we have a vaccine. I mean, all of us for the most part have less after this. I mean, less money in our wallets. And I think that we had begun to treat eating out as not a celebration. It was just something that we expected we could do. And now we have spent a lot of time in our kitchens. And while we'd all love for somebody else to cook for us now, I think we're more comfortable in our kitchens. And we perhaps see how much money we've saved by not eating out.
So what does that mean for the restaurants, though?
I mean, I just think
like my favorite restaurant that I'm not going to go to anymore.
No, I think that those places, the cream will rise to the top. And I think that, you know, those places will continue. And if the people who run them, if they want to, they'll continue doing that too. But I think we'll see more variety in how we can dine out or how we can eat something that we didn't necessarily cook.
Mm-hmm. And last, so before we open up to questions, another area that I'm so fascinated by is like the stories about agriculture and these farmers having a really tough time because restaurants aren't ordering all their food, so it's being wasted. And read another thing like Publix basically bought milk directly from dairy farms because of the oversupply that they have, and obviously we can't ship our goods, you know, elsewhere. So what is your whole philosophy about, you know, just agriculture in general? And obviously we've seen a lot of meat plants, you know, get the coronavirus and close down. There was the fear of meat. So how is that going to impact the future of food and, you know, our relationship to it?
Well, I think, you know, it's interesting because my first restaurant, Chef and the Farmer, was all about farm to table and like sourcing locally. And really, I did that as a means to like connect to our food source and have a relationship with farmers and support our local economy. But this has really made me think of it in a different way and really think that in order for us to operate and eat on a comfortable level, so many more of the foods we get have to be local. I mean, like, you know, we're seeing these supply chain problems related to them, you know, coming from here, or like a backlog in ingredients here. And I've got a poultry farmer that I work with that has tons of chicken, but she can't get it to a grocery store because there's no relationship there. And then also tons of chicken farmers or pork farmers here in Eastern North Carolina, large ones that sold to restaurants, and then there's no restaurants. And so they're going to small slaughter facilities in Eastern North Carolina, having those birds or pigs slaughtered and then parking in the parking lot of a mall. And, you know, people are coming up in their cars and buying them. And that's really like us figuring out how to get the food to the people and how to get, you know, the food out of here and being very resourceful. And so I think it allows us to engage in a local level in a way that we haven't in a long time. And I think it's one that will help us moving forward and give us comfort. So.
Amazing. So let's see if anybody has questions. Somebody says, are there any plans for another series?
You know, I hope so. I hope so. I think this show was really successful. You know, I had a show called A Chef's Life for 5 seasons, and it was, you know, it had a huge following. It won a Peabody, 2 Emmys. And so this one, I was so nervous when it came out because like, it's very different. It's much more history and culture based. It's not about my life. And I was very excited about those things, but I thought that our viewership may not be. But I've overwhelmingly gotten so much positive feedback about the quality and the reach and the content of the new show. So I hope we are able to.
Well, congratulations, congratulations. Well, thank you for coming. I don't see any other questions. Somebody asked about what a ghost kitchen is, and basically, isn't it basically a kitchen in a restaurant where they just use the kitchen to send out food?
Yeah, it's basically a back of house kitchen situation with no front of house. Like the service part of things would no longer exist in those types of establishments.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Vivian. You're such an inspiration. I guess the best thing about all this is that we're really going to connect with more people through food, and we're not going to have to spend a lot of money doing it because we're going to have more authority, and maybe we'll all be healthier, and there will still be restaurants, like you said, the cream of the creme. And thank you for coming. The last thing I just want to say is that this was our last final culture class, back to the theme of mixed emotion. Like, I'm having mixed emotions because, like, this is ending. I'm actually going back to New York City. I've been in Connecticut for the last 2.5 months. So that's a little emotional for me. There's fear. But also, I just am so grateful that many of you have been with me throughout the entire 11 weeks to keep learning, because right now, the only way to really survive anything is really to keep learning. And so how I'm moving this forward, now that we've had 11 classes, when you go to culture class, zeitguide.cultureclass/mass class, I'm offering the next 10 weeks as a semester, but you could also pay for each class as you go. And we're going to have other amazing Zeit guests like Vivian. And next week, our first one is going to be Shepard Ferry. And that's going to be really, really exciting. And I hope you all continue with this. I love doing this. It used to be what I used to do, and I continue to do for companies, and I have a premium version, but now I'm doing this. This is where the free culture class that we've been doing for the last 11 weeks has evolved into. So thank you, Vivian. Thanks, Rob. It's so illuminating. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and I hope I see you next week, which begins the summer.